All right, earlier in the hour, we talked about the DraftKings situation with a Central Iowa man. It's, he's suing him because he made some bets. DraftKings took the bets. He won his bets, and then they voided the bets. So we need to talk to somebody who knows a lot more about this than we do. So we bring in the lawyer who's representing this man, Ben Lynch. Nice mustache, by the way. That's a hell of a
look
stash.
at that.
Look at that mustache.
Good morning, guys.
Jealous. How you doing, Ben? Wait, with a mustache like that, he's doing great. You kidding me? You wake up with that thing?
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing well. Thank you. A little early, but I'm glad to be here.
A little early. Lawyers work around the clock, don't you?
That is very true. We do work a lot.
Okay, because I thought you were going to say lawyers work bankers' hours for a minute. That was going to be news to me. I thought you guys were 24 hours a day as well. Yeah.
So let's talk about this lawsuit. And when this man comes up and says, "Hey, I'd like to sue DraftKings," did you take the case right away, or was it one you dug into? And what made you go, "Oh, we got a case here"?
It was not something that I took right away. We did a lot of research into this, so we had to look at all of his bet slips, the correspondence with DraftKings. We had to look at the rules at the time that he placed the bet. We had to look at the rules after the fact when DraftKings changed them. And then really I had to educate myself, and I will give Nick Bavas, my client, a lot of credit on this. He I don't do a lot of sports betting. In fact, I don't really do any. I have before, but he had to kind of walk me through what's a parlay bet, how do these bets work, how are odds calculated. And I watch golf from time to time, but I don't know a ton about it. So I also had to kind of research how all that went. So reading online and a lot of background investigation led me to my decision to ultimately take the case. But no, it was not something I just took overnight, because lawyers have a duty to investigate claims and not file frivolous lawsuits. So I wanted to make sure I knew what the heck I was talking about. But lo and behold, after doing all that work, Nick was spot on. He's a very intelligent client, and he helped me get there. So everything that he said was true after I researched it.
All right, so Travis, I got some questions. Can we start to dive in? So you said, Ben, that the bet slips were a part of this. Do you mean let's now start to get into some of the details of that? Do you mean even previous bets that you kind of had to go back and look at his betting history, or are we specifically talking about these 5 bets that are mentioned in the lawsuit?
It was the third round bets for the 2024 Pebble Beach Pro-Am. That is what this lawsuit's all about. And so that's what we looked at is what were the rules at the time when he made that bet? What was the payout? And then they didn't pay it. So really, I'm interpreting this, and I think it's a reasonable interpretation that this is a contract. Nick and DraftKings made a contract. They entered into the contract when he placed the bet. They accepted the bet. They didn't do what they're supposed to do. So it's really just a breach of contract case.
So, I think if you were to look, and I'm wondering if other bettors have come forward and say, "Hey, this isn't the first time it's happened." I've heard a lot of horror stories where somebody wins big money, those bets get voided out, and they'll kick guys off the app because they don't want guys winning $1 million or $2 million on a parlay. They like people to lose their $100, $200 cash, and it stacks up. So he made a bet on a parlay. Was a second or third bet a little bit different, but he was playing the weather, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he was a meteorologist at the time going, okay, they're still taking bets. I'm going to make this bet thinking that it's going to get washed out. You don't think DraftKings has a case to where they say, hey, they didn't finish the tournament? There's no case there? Or, I mean, how do you attack that when they go, we understand what you're saying, but they never finished the actual 72 holes. They only played 54. They played a live tournament.
I think that argument is defeated very easily in 2 ways. Number one, don't accept bets if you don't want to pay the bet. You could have shut down the tournament. You see bad weather coming in, or there's this risk that it might be canceled earlier. Stop taking bets. Number two, if you are going to be accepting bets, your rules better allow you to do what you're saying you're going to do when you void these bets. So we looked at the rules, didn't allow them to void bets under these circumstances. So I think it's defeated that way. And if I didn't have those facts on my side, I probably wouldn't have taken the case. But nobody forced DraftKings to take these bets. And my argument is, if Nick would have lost this bet, I think the circumstances would have been a little bit different. It's, we have this business, this huge mega corporation that's publicly traded, making hundreds of millions of dollars a year in Iowa. And when the little guy comes around and wins a bet, after the fact, they just void the bet, and they don't expect to be held accountable. So I think it should go both ways. I think if you're accepting bets and the little guy wins, you got to pay the darn bet.
All right, so let's go to that. I'm writing down more questions as we go here, Ben. This is great. Let's talk about those changed rules that you've mentioned a few times here. What rules were in place, or what rules did they change, and how do you find out that they changed the rules?
Well, again, giving credit to my client, he's a very intelligent guy. He got the rules at the time when all this stuff started going down, and then we got the rules after the fact. And if you read some stories and stuff that are going around, DraftKings continues to share its new rules, which kind of make Nick look a little more flaky. But no, that's not what you had in effect at the time. And just to kind of make a long story short, without getting into the legal jargon, it allowed them to kind of have a little bit more discretion and leeway when it comes to voided bets. That's essentially, to make a long story short, what the difference in the rules were. But interestingly enough, we did request some rules at the time with some other sports books, and I'm drawing a blank on the names, but really some of these other sports books would have allowed them to cancel in a way that DraftKings wasn't able to. So that kind of cuts against DraftKings arguments of, we didn't know that this was going to happen, we had no way to predict against it, while other sports books had this stuff in effect. So their fault.
Go ahead, Trav.
Well, if you're able to go into court, if this goes to court, because I think this has settlement written all over it. I could be wrong, but I'm sure a settlement may come. But you're able to go and say, judge, jury, here were the rules on the bet. Here are where they are now. They changed the rules after the fact. You're able to show that those documents?
Yes, we are. And I think we have a really sympathetic client. I mean, it's a dude my age in central Iowa. This is going to be in the Southern District of Iowa in federal court in Des Moines. And we're going up against a corporation from out of state who, I got to be careful about my words here, but they make a lot of money. And my client's just a normal, everyday, regular guy. And it's called gaming law. It's gaming law. Think about that word. It's a game. He played the game. He won the game. Pay the bet. They keep saying, I've seen in the news, well, he was playing the weather, this and that. Well, when you place bets, you're allowed to factor in the weather. If you're betting on a Cubs game and it's a downpouring game as opposed to a sunny game, that might impact your bet, and that's totally fine. You're allowed to do that. It's a game.
Well, look at Caitlin Clark right now. I mean, you don't think people are betting against the Indiana Fever because Caitlin Clark is hurt? Your bet has changed because Caitlin's hurt, and you're like, oh, they've lost 3 in a row without her. Maybe I'm going to go against the Fever here because she's not playing. I mean, we all try to game the system when we do place bets. And Ross and I are kind of like you. We dibble-dabbled in betting. We're not huge bettors. But I wouldn't have been smart enough to go, oh, look at the weather. I think I'm going to place a bet here. That's actually pretty smart on the guy's part.
Very smart. And I did see one article that said it was a loophole. Somebody referred to his bet as a loophole. I'm like, it's not really a loophole. He placed a valid bet. I think it's a completely valid bet. And I don't really like that terminology, but I don't think this was some scheme or something weird. I mean, it's all about odds and variables, and he was smart, and he should be paid for his bet. And he's not the only person that this happened to. So he was the first person that contacted me, and that's why we filed a lawsuit. But ever since that lawsuit went public, we had people coming out of the woodworks contacting us. I didn't really reach out to anybody. People came to me, news, and then it went, all over Reddit and YouTube and all this stuff. And now other people were finding out that, we're a lot of other people on this exact same issue, the third round, Pebble Beach 2024. They're coming forward. So, it's a very interesting thing.
Who would have thought your niche might turn from personal injury into you do other law too,
into one specific rainstorm on one
who's the gambling expert in the country? We're going to Ben Lynch.
Yeah.
Ben, so these other clients, like Travis was asking earlier, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. There are lots of stories about these gambling entities. I mean, casinos, gambling apps, whatever you want to call them, having situations like this. But you're saying that you've had multiple clients reach out about this specific bet on this specific tournament.
Dozens. Yep. Dozens of them. And I've had other attorneys reach out to me too. They're like, and like you said, Travis, I never thought I'd be the DraftKings expert, but very, very, very interesting thing. And based on my research, don't quote me on this, but I believe that this is the biggest single person unpaid bet against a sports book in U.S. history, based on what I'm able to see at the 14 mil. I have not seen anything that even comes close to it. So you mentioned that DraftKings screw people or sports books screw people around a lot, and I think that is true. But I'm not aware of anything to this magnitude, so it's kind of unprecedented.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why it's gotten garnered the attention that it has, because of that $14 million number. And there are a lot of people. We all know friends. Travis and I, as he said, Ben, I'm such a bad gambler. It takes my brain a half a beat to remember if the plus or minus is good or bad. Mm-hmm. That's how bad of a gambler I am. So we're kind of walking into this thing blind as well. There is a part of me that sees the DraftKings side of this, that sees this and says, man, it's not really in the spirit of the bet that there was no more you bet on a competition that was essentially over. Now, I do see the argument. The betting was open, and I just took advantage of the opportunity that was there for me. But there's this part of me that sees it as not being in the spirit of the competition, and I don't know why. In a courtroom, I don't think that would win. But
I think that's a valid thing to bring up, and I think that's exactly probably what DraftKings is going to say. But my thing is, when he placed that bet, we had no idea if the PGA was going to open up that fourth round. And like I told you, if there would have been one swing into the fourth round and then he lost, they would have taken his money. So we didn't know. He didn't know. I mean, it's all about odds. He's guessing.
Yeah, well, in a lot of golf tournaments, they'll push that final round to a Monday and play it, right? I mean, there's still the possibility of that, which is fascinating. You mentioned other people reaching out to you. Does this become a class action suit to where a bunch of people jump on and they go after DraftKings?
Without getting into too many legal crap, I really don't see this turning into a class action. Not because we don't have the numbers of people, but there's some very specific requirements in order to get a class action going. One is like the bet amounts would have to be kind of similar, and we have so many varying amounts from like 50 grand to 14, 6 mil. And I don't think there's enough. It doesn't really make sense just from a boring legal perspective. I don't even think the court would certify a class action in this scenario, but I think they all have their own individual bets. So I don't see it going class action. Those are kind of hard to make happen.
I brought up a settlement earlier. Do you think this sees the courtroom, or does this get settled before it goes to court?
Well, I can't comment on what, if any, conversations I'm having with DraftKings, because those would be confidential. But with that being said, as you mentioned, most cases don't go to trial. I mean, the vast majority of cases settle. If there's a fair resolution that happens, I would be thrilled. If there isn't, I'm ready to go to trial, and I'm ready to have my day in court for my client. So I don't take cases unless I'm ready to go to court on it, unless I'm willing to go to court on it. And this is one of those that I would be willing to.
I'm telling you, with that mustache and that man bun, man, you're going to walk into court and you are going to intimidate people.
In, they're going to go, you know what? Give the guy, it's over.
Just give the guy the 14 mil. We're going to call it quits.
I'd be okay with that.
It sounds like your client's done a lot of research for you. Are you giving him a break on your hourly fee? Like, okay, well, you've done this. I'm just going to knock this off.
No.
Say no.
No. Well, and the reason why is because I mentioned earlier that something like this hasn't happened before, but this is almost what we call in the legal community like an issue of first impression. There's not a lot of court history that we can look back on this. Sports betting has only been legal for a certain amount of time. So we've invested a lot of hours into this. And if we lose, I'm not going to make anything. So there's the risk there that I don't really, this is no man's land. I'm getting calls from lawyers saying, talk to me about this, because nobody really knows. The judges probably don't understand this. It's just a new area of law. So I think
is that called case law, when you're able to reference previous cases and there's no real precedent?
There's nothing. There's not a single case on point to this specific issue ever. It's
So
just too new.
I know DraftKings and then has an Iowa subsidiary. I forget what it's called. But does the Iowa Gaming Commission get involved with this at all? Do you bring them into this?
No, we don't sue the Iowa Gaming Commission. We sue essentially the Iowa corporation acting on behalf of DraftKings in each individual state. And in Iowa, I think it's called Crown Gambling or something or other. But we sued the Iowa corporation and the home headquarters. But no, we don't sue the Gaming Commission. They're kind of like a third-party investigating agency, so they don't really have any relevance as a defendant in this case.
But they want to make sure that stuff's on the up and up. I mean, they're going to be paying attention to this, right? Because I mean, they want gambling to succeed, but they also want it to be fair for people who do place bets. I would think they would be interested in this case.
I mean, that's technically their mission. Yes.
That's their stated mission on paper.
Technically,
that's what they write on the internet.
I just think to myself, who wants to be the gaming commission that's going to, kind of push a sports book out of the state that's bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue. Like that's kind of a public policy thing. It's like, do you rock the boat? Like I'm sure people are loving that tax money. So I'm not talking crap about them, but I think they're in a tough position. They've kind of put their hands up and just like you guys, like, I think the courts are the right way to do this, not really the Iowa Gaming Commission.
Ben, let me go. So let's go back to that case law thing and kind of setting precedent and the possibility of a settlement, because it would seem to me as we're kind of walking through this, the Iowa Gaming Commission, all of these different gambling entities would really benefit from there being a settlement here and not allowing something to get set as a precedent for when you don't pay off a bet, the state can have this sort of recourse on you. So am I wrong?
No, you're so spot on, because if this ever goes to trial or if there's public filings and a court says, that DraftKings or any defendant really, they always file what's called like a motion to dismiss or a motion for summary judgment prior to trial. And that's pretty much saying, Judge, even if all the facts are true, this argument fails on a legal perspective because X, Y, and Z. And then the judge says, yep, we're kicking it out, or nope, we're going to trial. And if the judge would say, nope, we're going to trial, that would be public record forever. And then any other similar situated person can look back at that pleading or a jury trial where the jury says, Nick Bavas gets $14 million. That will be public forever. If we settle the case, there's usually, it's usually NDAs and things like that signed. So that way everything just goes away. So the public would really never know the details, and I would never be able to talk about it. So it could look like
you'll get a new car out of the deal. I promise you that. You'll be driving a nice car.
Well, no, there will be signs.
Nick's driving a Porsche. What the heck?
His mustache somehow got better. What the hell happened? Ben, are you a Des Moines guy? Because we've had some listeners write in about that you're a great guy. Apparently some of our listeners are familiar with you. Are you a Central Iowa native or?
I grew up in Northeast Iowa, a small little town, and I moved to Des Moines in 2013 for law school. So I've been here for 12 years. I went to Drake, and then I practiced for a little bit, a couple of years after law school, and then I started up my own shop. We have our 5-year anniversary in a month or two. So I'm a solo practitioner, a little bit of support staff, but really I just run my own show, and it's Ben Lynch Law. That's what I do. So I take cases that are fun and interesting to me, and I kind of do whatever gets me excited to get out of bed in the morning.
What's the most fun case you've had that you could talk to us about?
Honestly, this one's got to be.
This one's it. Yeah,
it feels like
pretty cool.
It feels like I'm kind of betting myself. Like it's kind of thrilling. Like it's a really fun and interesting deal. So I've had a lot of fun with this. Just working with Nick has been a joy, and it's been a lot of fun. I love sports. I was watching you guys before I came on here, and I jive with everything you guys talk about. It's a really cool show, and I never even heard of you guys before, but this is cool.
Are you kidding me?
Where the hell have you been?
Yeah.
You know what? Where's the end button? How do we?
Yeah, geez.
Love sports. Love. Like I said, I don't really bet, but it's been my own little form of betting. So it's been fun. It's been super, super fun.
Now we need to blame. And Travis, now we need to blame some of our listeners, like Scott Cronbaugh, who says, "Hey, I tailgate with Ben. He's a great dude." Scott, how the hell you told Ben about us yet? Son of a
Yeah, you're supposed to spread the word. I mean, we've only been on together for 15 years.
All right, so Ben, what do we got to do to get our names into this lawsuit in some way? Can we become part of the public record? We really want. No.
Start placing some bets, and if you get screwed over, I guess call.
So we have an expert that is a doctor, and Dr. Sullivan over at DMOS. We're always going to need a lawyer expert when it comes up to stuff. We won't pay you, but will you be our lawyer expert?
Sure. As long bring me on here to talk about sports. I'm a huge Vikings fan, so we can spitball about the Vikings all day long.
You've had a rough life. You've had a rough life if you're a Vikings fan.
Yeah.
A lot of disappointment.
Truly.
All right, Ben. Ben Lynch Law is the website. That's benlynchlaw.com. He doesn't just do gambling cases. You do a lot of different cases. So if you need a lawyer, go to the guy with a great mustache, great man bun, because I can't grow something like that. And benlynchlaw.com is.
Ben, thanks a lot. This was awesome, man. Thank you for answering all of our questions. Good luck.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.